Have you ever wondered how you can love God? You know, the Bible says in Deuteronomy 6 verse 5 that we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all our strength, with all our soul. But how is that possible? What does that look like when we love God with our whole being? How can we know that we truly love God? How can you know that you truly love God? You know, is it in the way that we speak? Is it in the things that we do? Is it in the things that we know? Is it in the way that we treat people? How does loving God look like? Now join me today, friends, as I answer some of these questions and briefly have a look at how we can love God and how we can understand that we do love Him indeed. And today I'm going to talk about 2 ways that you can know that you love God. My name is Pastor Gerald, and this is Grace Waves. Good morning, friend. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for this edition of Grace Waves. And it's always such a privilege for you to be here and for me to be able to bring this message to you, and knowing that you are watching our videos or listening to our messages. So thank you so much for your support. Now, as I promised yesterday on Wednesday, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can love God. Now, have you ever asked yourself that question, like, how do I know that I really love God? Is there a way for me to know that I love Him? And there, we know that the Bible tells us, as we just read in the book of Deuteronomy as well, that we know that we should love God. And also in 1 John chapter 4 verse 16, the Bible says that we should abide in love, and then we will abide in God and God in us. So how do we do that? What does that look like? Now, we know that in the world, there is a lot of people that say they love God. There's a lot of people that say that they are Christians. But when we look at their lives and the way they speak and the way they live, they tell another story. And many people have actually left or run away from Christianity or from Jesus Christ because of that very fact that many people say they love God, but when they look at those people, they do not see that love that they profess. And so how can you and I, how can we know that we surely love God and we live and act in such a way that it shows that we love God? Now, the first way that you can do this is by listening and obeying the words of God. Obeying God's commandments. Now, if you think about it, right? If you really love somebody, you respect them and you want to do what they tell you to do. You want to do the things that you know is on their heart and the things they ask you to do. Not because you necessarily must, but because you want to out of love. And it's the same way in our relationship with God. Our lives and the way that we live our life tells the story of our love and our relationship with our God. So if I do not live a certain way, if I do not live in a way that shows that I honor Him, that I obey His words, that I cherish His words, then it can be very clear to me and to others that even though I might say I love God, I really don't. And 2 verses on this point that I want to give to you. The first one is in John chapter 14, verse 21. And the Bible says, the person who has my commandments, Jesus speaking here, the person who has my commandments and keeps them is the one who really loves me. And whosoever really loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal myself to him. Right? The person who really loves me is the one that keeps my commandments. And we'll get back to that in a moment. John chapter 15 verse 10, the Bible says, Jesus speaking again, if you keep my commandments and obey my teaching, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. Now, to keep his commandments really means that you treasure his word, right? That you are willing to seek and to know and to understand and to obey his words. You're not just simply, reading the Bible. Let me show you here. You're not just simply, taking the Bible and reading it for the sake of reading it, but you are reading it because you understand that God is speaking to you and you want to know what is written and what he says because you want to obey those words. Because why? You love him. And so if I truly love God, then this book is precious to me. It is his heart, it is his words, and these are the things that I want to obey, not because I must or because I'm told to, but because I love him. And that is important for us to understand. Your life really tells an amazing story of what your relationship is with God and with his word. There's another interesting verse in Matthew chapter 15 verse 7 to 8. The Bible says, "You hypocrites, rightly did Isaiah prophesy when he said, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me.'" Right? They honor me with their lips, they speak the right things, but their heart, which is their soul, is far from me. Which is, your soul is the core of who you are. It is your being, and your soul controls what the body does. And so if your soul is far from God, if your heart is far from God, then your behavior, the way you live, will also show that you are far from God. And so it is not good enough for us just to say that, I love God, or for you to say, I'm a Christian, I love Jesus, or to have the bumper sticker, hoot if you love Jesus. But then the person drives by and they hoot, beep, beep, and then you jump out the window swearing at them, throwing all kinds of signs and things. And it's I thought you loved Jesus. Now, sometimes obviously we fail, but as a matter of rule, we try to live our lives according to his will and according to his word. And even if we fail, we still obey his word in that we come back to him, we ask for forgiveness, we change, and we go on, right? We try again, we go on, we do it again. Now, remember that love, like we said during the week, love is a matter of priority. And so if I say that I love God, then it means that God has to have a certain priority in my life. And if I prioritize God, then his words and his will and his heart will also be a priority to me because I love him. And so this takes me to the second point, because when I prioritize God, what God prioritizes will also be my priority. And so here we see that the second point is, and how you can love God, is that you love that which he loves. And we know already from what we said in the week that God's number one priority is in fact the people in the world. It is us, people, souls. We are his priority. And so if we are his priority and you prioritize God, what do you think outside of God will be your primary priority in life? To love people. And so that is the second point, is that your love for God is seen in the way that you treat other people, the way that you love other people, right? You know that when Jesus said, that he said that when we get to heaven, that he will say, I was hungry and you fed me, I was thirsty and you gave me water, I was alone and destitute and you came to me and you visited me and helped me. Right? And the people said, but when did we do these things to you? And he said, but as long as you do these things to those who I love, you are doing the same unto me. And so we find that when we love God, we also love God's people, and we love people in general. We prioritize people. It is on our heart. And therefore, friend, if you want to know if you truly love God, you can look at the way that you treat other people. In 2 John chapter 1, verse 5 to 6, 2 John chapter 1, verse 5 to 6, the Bible says, and this is John writing to the church, he says, I beseech thee, lady, which is the church, not as though I wrote a new commandment unto you, but that which we had from the beginning, that we love one another, right? That was the commandment. And this is love, that we walk after his commandments, right? Again, the same thing. And then listen to what he says, but he says, this is the commandment, that as ye have heard from the beginning, you should walk in it. What is that commandment? That we should love one another. And if we love him, we will keep his commandments. And his commandment is that we should love one another. And so, friend, really the reality of our love for God is not seen in our knowledge. It is not seen in how eloquent we can speak about God, you know, the Holy Trinity and the theology that I've learned through the years. It is not found in those things, but it is found in the way you live your life and in the way that you treat other people. I cannot be a racist and say that I love Jesus Christ. I am then a liar, the Bible says, and the truth is not in me. I cannot care for one person less than for another person, or look down on one person and yet say that I have the love of God in my heart. Those two do not go together. And unfortunately, especially in a country like ours in South Africa, you see that a lot, right? Where people say they love God, they go to church, and I like, this is like a very grievous point for me. But yet when it comes to the practical life of obeying God's words and loving people, it is absolutely nowhere to be found. And then I have to raise the question, but do you then really, or do we really love God? And so, just these 2 points this morning, friends, that I want to share with you. And remember that love is a decision of priority. And so the decision is in your hand. Whether you want to love God or not, God will not force you to love him. You have to make that choice, to take his word and to love it and to keep it and to obey his words and to love as he loves, or to just be the same as the Pharisees, a hypocrite, a person that is just pretending Christianity, playing church, playing Christianity. God, Jesus said, I wish that you were hot or cold, but because you are lukewarm, I will spit you out. I will vomit you out, he says, because I hate it. And that's what happens when we say we love God, but really we don't love his word and we don't love his people. Is that we are just cold, right? We are lukewarm Christians. And so God really hates that. So let us make a decision today that we will love God with all our heart, right? And that's what it means that we follow after him. And sometimes you will fail. But that does not mean that you don't love him. It means that you still obey him. You get up, you try again, you continue again, you ask for forgiveness, you say sorry to that person, you humble yourself, and you continue to walk with him. So thank you so much for listening today, friend. It is such an awesome privilege to have you here. And please remember before you go to leave a like on the message and to subscribe to our channel and to share this message and help us reach many, many people in the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And please remember to join me on Friday afternoon, which is the afternoon of this message, for our afternoon questions and answers at 1:30 in South African time, as we discuss any questions that you might have or any comments about this week's topic of God's love. Thank you so much for listening. May you have a blessed day. And as always, God bless you.